gone. Aubameyang's gone. He's got a contract until 2025 with Barcelona. It is a €100 million buyout clause in that contract. Does that surprise you, Simon?
I think it's probably just standard form at elite football clubs now. All they do is they change the number. There's a clause in their contracts now. Everyone's a bit more sophisticated in their management of players and managers these days. So they'll have a boilerplate contract which has a clause in there which says how much is the buyout. He's 32 years of age. He's a pest. Well, bottom line is we don't want to put too much on it because maybe one day we want to get rid of him.
Trevor, you don't think he's a pest? And I've got to say that I'm looking at one message this morning, no name in it. Jim, please ask Trevor Sinclair why it's never the player's fault.
I'm not saying it's not his fault. I said at the top of my answer, we don't know the details exactly what's gone on between Arteta.
He's not blameless, though, Trevor.
I'm not saying he is because he was late for training. You should always try and be on time for training, and if it's happening time and time again. But let's not pretend that he's just arrived at the club and signed a contract and they've started to learn about his personality, his character, and what he's like. He's been there for, 6, 7 years? So they knew him. They give him the new contract on the back of that because he was scoring goals. All of a sudden, he's continuing to act the same way. His goals may have dried up a little bit and you start treating him differently. There's got to be two sides of each argument. And for me, if you would have been able to get through that as a manager with looking at Arteta and back the player and give him a pathway back into that first team squad, he would have repaid that with more goals.
You have to be fair. You have to be equitable. And we are making the assumption that in some way along the line, potentially by Trevor's logic, that there's not an equitability, not an opportunity to redeem himself. And I think if you haven't got performance, what else have you got? If you're a player that's been afforded the opportunity to get a contract which is astronomical, and you've leveraged that contract and you've wanted that contract, there does become a time when you have to be worth that contract. And when your form diminishes, eventually people's interest in you is going to diminish. You can't continue to be supported and rewarded for not performing because the only thing you've got to offer, you're not offering them community service, are you? You're not running around doing PR for them, opening old people's homes. Your job is to be on a football pitch and perform. So of course you're going to be judged in a different way if your performance isn't at a level. I suspect, really and truly, he's reaped precisely what he's sown. His reputation came with him. Now, there might have been some tolerance from Unai Emery. There might have been some tolerance while Arteta was learning his trade. Because don't forget, Arteta wasn't there that long with Aubameyang taking over from Unai Emery. They won an FA Cup, which ostensibly he won for them.
Kept him in a job.
And maybe did keep him in a job. Maybe he didn't. Maybe if he lost the FA Cup final, he would have lost his job. We'll never know. But the point is the player has brought it upon himself. And I would suspect that given the personalities of managers, if a player is prepared to do what it takes to redeem himself, most managers would use that as a strength because there's no better thing than to turn a player's thinking.
So why is a young player Guendouzi not back then?
I think his behaviour needed to be thoroughly smacked.
He was a young lad. He made a mistake. He got a bit too big for his boots. Okay, he went out on that. Why is he not back? He's a good player.
I think first of all, if you look at the players that talk about him, like the ex-Arsenal players didn't think he was good enough for a start. Secondly, they thought his attitude was absolutely appalling and shouldn't be anywhere near the football club. And C, he showed no desire to make amends for the ridiculous observations he made to Neil Maupay.
That's true, Trevor. There was no remorse one bit from Guendouzi. And I know it's not Simon and I on you as an ex-player, but eventually
he's been shipped out.
Is this not a warning for other clubs, though, Trevor, that when you give it, I mean, Simon, this actually should be one for you because you've rewarded players with contracts as you deemed fit when you quite rightly were at the top of the house at Palace.
And you've got to give players the benefit of the doubt sometimes. You do. Of course you do.
But is there not a danger in saying to Aubameyang, yeah, we really like you, in fact, we love you, we're going to pay you 350 grand a week. Is there not a danger there that affects his motivation?
Well, you can't judge the person's motivation. You can only judge them in the here and now. You would like to think that a player that says to you, I'm your best player, and I am the player that's ultimately, in part, responsible for some of the success. I must be remunerated in the same way that the best players of other clubs are. If Kevin De Bruyne is getting this, if XYZ player's getting that, then I'm on that part. Am I not? I'm on that part. I've had that conversation done to me by managers. Yeah. So I understand that. Yeah. There on afterwards, it is a difficult situation if you've got a player that motivation drops. If their motivation drops, there's another word for that. That's called cheating a living. Because you cannot take a contract on the principle of your value and then say my motivation has dropped because I've got too much money. That's cheating. That's another form of larceny.
Is
you
there
take
an
something
element,
under
Trevor,
false pretenses?
Aubameyang latterly at Arsenal was nicking a living.
Listen, I wouldn't say nicking a living, but potentially his performance, his desperation to do well, to earn that big contract, and once he'd earned that contract, maybe his levels did drop. You wouldn't expect international experienced players to do that. You'd expect young players to do that. He's not a young player. What, is he 31?
So then you extrapolate. But here's the thing: what happens? The reason why Richard Keogh got himself in so much trouble at Derby was because he was the captain, and when that car crash happened with those players, he was the captain. Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang was a senior player that was rewarded and given the captaincy, so he is held to a higher standard. So if he decides that he's going to
held to a higher standard by who? Because if I remember correctly, that court case was won in the club. Derby had to pay him 2.1 million. So what you're saying is getting chucked.
No, you're missing the point, Trevor. Let me take you back a step. He's the club captain, so he's
too much is talked about captains. You're all captains out there, Simon.
Well, that's not bloody
and
true.
All experienced
don't be
players
silly,
have
Trevor.
got
That's
leadership
silly.
qualities.
You have leadership, and there's a captain's job for a reason, and the captain's job is because he exhibits a certain level of maturity, understanding, ability to relate to the manager, and ability to understand the bigger picture. All of those things form part of a captain's thinking. Richard Keogh was a person that was involved in something. As a captain, he should have known better, so he gets held to a higher standard. If it's a 19-year-old kid, you go, you don't know any better.
I disagree with that.
Well, okay, well, perhaps that's why you don't manage football teams. But you go into a situation where you've got Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, a senior footballer that's been given a fabulous contract, that's the captain of the club, and his reaction is to maybe either lose his motivation if we're speculating, or to start turning up late and replicate what we already know about him, which has followed him through his career. No one's going to tolerate it. No one's going to sit there and say, come here, son. No. Let's find out what's going on with you so we can make you feel better about it.
So you had a player that was acting one way. Yep. You award him with a new contract. You give him the captaincy. Yep. He continues acting the same way.
Yep.
And you want to throw him out the club.
Well, depends.
That makes sense.
Depends if A, he was acting that way first.
B, you just said he came with a reputation. Make your mind up, Simon.
But with a reputation that was based upon his experiences in Dortmund. If Arteta comes in the door and doesn't see it for the first 6 months, he doesn't see it. Unai Emery might have seen it. He doesn't see it. He does what most sensible people would do, which is judge it by his own eyes, right? So anyone that's got any brains judges things by their own eyes. Don't take things on people's reputations, right? Some people do, some people don't. He gets to see Aubameyang at his best. Aubameyang reverts to type. Right, it goes back to type because he can't hold himself together for any period of time because we all revert to type, right? Yep, I say things that I know are my type. You say things that you know you're your type, as much as we try not to. So Aubameyang then starts taking liberties, and Arteta's got a backdrop of a team not being successful, is captain p-balling around, right? What's he going to do? He's going to take the captain to task. And it wasn't the first time that Aubameyang came under pressure from Arteta. We were hearing that narrative for some time. And the final straw that broke the camel's back was a situation where he came back late again, we understand. So it's not as if he's not a recidivist. He is a repeat offender. And Arteta went, big club, big manager, big responsibilities, buffoon. Haven't got time for you. You should go. And he got the support of the guys that write the checks out, the big boys that see it objectively and see it from money. This is my money. Why am I giving my money away? Here's the reason why you're giving your money away, because he's a waste of time and he will destroy the dressing room.
Listen, I don't disagree. If he is a bad apple, you don't want any bad apples.
The players didn't like him either, did they? Apparently.
Maybe because he's got a different culture, he's quite flamboyant. Maybe they didn't like that part of him. But what I would say is, a leopard will never change its spots.
True.
He has scored goals wherever he has been. He has been consistently a great professional. So almost what you're saying is he's had all that success. He's been at all these top clubs.
Harry, I'm coming to you.
And they bumped him. And they bumped him.
They didn't bump him. He sold him for £58 million.
Do you still think he should still be at Arsenal,
Trevor? Pardon?
Do you still think he should still be at Arsenal?
Like I said at the top, we don't know the exact details. So whatever we say, we can't say with any kind of assurance.
Trevor,
but what I would say is, I don't think that he's been treated unfairly, but I would say that they could have maybe mended that bridge and got the best out of Aubameyang.
In other words,
prostitute
they could have done.
Prostitute themselves. If you want to build something with substance, you do it with substance. Or you don't prostitute yourself.
You do what you did with Captain. You put him in the reserves for a few years.
I'm aware you've been waiting for a while, mate. What do you want to say in this? Aubameyang, are you glad he's gone or what?
Yeah, I am. Trevor, I just can't understand where you're coming from with this. You're saying, Arteta should be taking him out and doing what Pep's done to Foden and Grealish. But what's the result there? What's the reward? So you take him out and you try and bring him back into the squad, and he's got 1 year left on his contract. There's no point trying to reform him. He's on a massive contract. He's not performing. What do you expect him to do?
Well, to do what he's been doing at Arsenal for the majority of his time at the football club, score goals and be a great player for you.
No, but the key line in what Harry said there, not reforming.
You're saying a leopard never changes his spots. You're saying a leopard never changes his spots. Well, he has. past season and a half, he's just not scored goals. It's not correct to say, oh, we're just going to carry on bagging goals. It's not like Aubameyang's got an attitude issue, but he's still performing on the pitch. He's got an attitude issue, and he's not performing.
Harry, I don't know how passionate an Arsenal fan you are, but let me ask you this. If you were to speak for Arsenal fans this morning, what do you think what do you think the opinion of the vast majority is?
Well, thank you for the good times, but I think it's time to call it quits. I think that's the opinion we have. We're very grateful to him for all the good times he gave us for the FA Cup and for the performances on the pitch, but I think it was time to call it quits and let him go.
Parting of the ways. Harry, listen, thanks for that. Well, there has been a parting of the ways because Barcelona have signed Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.